Tell me, how many credit cards do you currently have?
I carry one card.
2. Like 10 probably? Like all the store ones with everything.
I have 5-6 credit card. 10.
10. Like a Visa, a couple American Express. Oh, and here comes another one, another Discover. And wow.
When you go in places, they make it so easy for you that you are inclined to use them.
All my shopping, hotel reservations, absolutely everything.
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 all sorts of things.
I use it just about for everything that I do, all my purchases right now because of the rewards that I get from the card.
Now, what kind of rewards have you been able to get?
Cash back?
It's a good deal.
Oh, it's a fantastic deal. We wouldn't have taken the trip unless we had done that.
Wow, unless you went into credit card debt, you would have never been able to take that Paris trip.
I guess so, yeah.
So $120,000 gets you a couple of round-trip tickets.
Exactly.
Now, how much did you have to spend to get that $275?
$30,000.
Is that kind of good math? To spend $30,000 to get $275 back?
You show me something better and I'll sign up for that one.
Tonight's lesson is particularly hard for a speaker, a teacher like me. Because, see, my job is to bring you ideas that you accept as your own. That's called learning. If you accept them as your own, it's going to cause you to go do things differently than you used to do things. The problem I've got this evening is I've got an uphill battle because this lesson goes directly perpendicular against everything in our culture. Just about every message out there talks about how smart and wise you are to go into debt, and I am going to make the rarefied and crazy statement that I think debt is dumb. I think it's stupid. Well, a few of you are kind of getting the idea that maybe that'll work, you know? But can you imagine if I go into a public setting and I'm speaking, you know, in a motivational seminar with a big lineup of big name seminar guys and that kind of thing, and then I get up there and I'm the guy saying in this culture, car payments are stupid, credit cards are dumb, and home equity loans crazy? I mean, can you imagine that I'm the guy that says you can be a student without a student loan? I mean, that is exactly against everything you hear out there. And so what I've got to do is more than just merely tickle your brain a little bit to get you to look at things differently. I've got to completely crush a cultural paradigm to even be heard on this subject. I'm going to attempt to do that in our time together. With some of you it will work, and some of you are going to go, he's just crazy. The boy's just lost it. And that's fine, I'm cool with that because, well, you know, we've already figured out normal is broke. And I don't want to be normal. My goal is total weirdness. You know, the Wall Street Journal says 70% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. I don't want to be normal. Figure out what most people are doing out there. Don't do it, and you're in pretty good shape. That's an idea. But when it comes to this debt subject, you know, if you tell a lie, you spread a myth loud enough, long enough, and often enough, eventually it becomes accepted as the truth. You know, if I get my compass out, I could establish really quickly that right through there is north, according to a compass. Now, there's always some moron that will argue with that, isn't there? But that's the truth. But if I spent $482 million a year per year for a decade or two trying to convince people that was north, some would begin to believe it. Because they saw it on television, so it must be true. Everything on TV is true, isn't it? I mean, reality TV's real, isn't it? Come on, I mean, really. Isn't it amazing how we just buy into this stuff? And that's what we're talking about here. And see, debt has been marketed to us with such intensity, with such sophistication, and the marketing, and with a large amount of marketing dollars for so long, that to even imagine living without debt requires a complete paradigm shift, a completely new way of looking at things. Now, the way you get a paradigm shift, the way you get a new way of looking at things is you put stuff into your brain that wasn't in there before, and that's what we're going to do tonight. You know, when you read a book and you go, wow, I never thought of that way before. And it gives you a new way of looking at marriage, or a new way of looking at raising kids, or a new way of, controlling your physique and losing weight, or building muscle, or learning to run, or ride bikes, or whatever it is you're going to do. When you get a new way of doing things from learning. And that's what we're doing here tonight. So congratulations for being with us. Our great-great-grandparents thought debt was a sin. I mean, think about it. Here's some interesting actual facts. The 1910 Sears catalog. Now, this is Sears. Credit card city Sears. The 1910 Sears catalog said, buying on credit is folly. Now, that's another generation, isn't it? J.C. Penney, Mr. J.C. Penney, was nicknamed, because he was so tight, James Cash Penney, because he didn't believe in debt. And while he was alive, J.C. Penney, the stores, offered no credit, ever. Henry Ford of Ford Motor Company fame hated debt. Ford Motor never offered credit on cars until 10 years after General Motors did, because of Henry's personal disdain for debt. These are actual facts. But that's a whole 2-3 generations ago almost now, isn't it? And we look back there, our great-great-grandparents basically thought debt was a sin. Our grandparents, they thought debt was really dumb, and they borrowed on a couple of things. And, so around 1950, we see the birth of what we now call the credit card by a guy named Frank McNamara. Frank printed up some plastic cards in the city of New York City, and started handing them out as a way to go. Several restaurants began to accept these cards, and it was the very first credit card out there. It was called Diners Club, and it is still around out there, actually. Around 1958, out on the West Coast, there was a little company called Bank AmeriCard sprung up, which was the precursor and later became known as Visa. In 1958, American Express was born. So this is some interesting history on this. See, our grandparents thought debt was dumb. Our parents come along, they start to borrow on everything. By 1970, only 15% of Americans owned plastic. In 1976, Bank AmeriCard changed its name and became Visa, just 30 some odd years ago. Visa, in the scope of the history of the world, is a fairly new product. And here's an interesting one, too. Some of you didn't know this. Back in 1986, Sears got in a little dispute with Visa, didn't like the fee structure. So they said, we'll show you, we'll just start our own brand. And Discover Card was born by Sears. And it became the most profitable division of Sears. And when Sears got in financial trouble, the way they survived that financial upheaval was they sold off the Discover Card accounts and brand and made a ton of money on it. So our great-grandparents thought debt was a sin. Our grandparents thought it was really stupid. Our parents borrowed on a few things. We come along, we borrow on everything. I mean, you go down to a pet store, you get 90 days, same as cash on Rover. Come here, baby, Repo Man's here. And over 6 billion credit card offers went out last year. 6 billion, that's 6,000 million. And 18 million people accepted it. One of my listeners mailed me this in from our radio show from Bank One. It's the Bank One Platinum MasterCard. It's interesting. It says solid line of credit up to $100,000. It's addressed to Mr. Toby Cocker on Rocky Mountain Parkway. And my listener wrote across the front, Dave, this is my dog's name. Toby the Cocker Spaniel. And Toby's been dead 4 years. 6 billion credit card offers out there, including Mr. Toby Cocker. What we're saying here is that banks are very, very good at selling their product. And what you and I have got to realize as consumers is debt is not a privilege, debt is a product.
I love credit card commercials. They're so bright and shiny and hopeful. But do you know why they are? They want to distract you. They want to distract you from what's really going on. They don't want you to see that paragraph of copy at the bottom, the legal disclaimer. So they try to distract you with the bright and shiny. But do you know who else gets distracted by things that are bright and shiny? Cats. Cats love lasers. They are amazed by a laser. So when we talk to you about your finances and being smart with your money, when Rachel talks to you, when Dave talks to you, we're not saying, hey, you need to be a financial expert today. You need to get a PhD in finance. We just want you to make better decisions than cats. I mean, that's a really low bar. I think we can get over it. But credit card commercials sometimes make it hard. Sometimes they try to confuse you with something that's shiny, or they do even worse. They compare themselves to something they're not. They'll say it's not a credit card. It's not a credit card. It's a doorway to adventure. It's a passport to a new life. Ooh, that sounds like there'll be a unicorn involved. Now, here's the problem. When a credit card does that, I think we should do that too. Like if a credit card is going to compare themselves to something they're not, why don't we do that? Imagine if you dated a girl who treated you like a credit card does. What if in the middle of dinner, you were just having dinner and she declined you right there? She just left the date. That would be a bad girlfriend, wouldn't it? What if after a bad relationship, your dating score was really low? You had a bad dating score, and everybody else who met you at a party would say, you're really interesting, I like you, you seem neat, but what happened in Ohio in 2009? You've got a really low dating score, and imagine if your girlfriend sold that relationship to somebody else, because that happens with credit cards all the time. I mean, imagine if you came to pick her up for the prom, and you knocked on the door, and it opened, and there was a tall man in his 50s with a mustache, and he said, your girlfriend sold me the relationship. I'm so excited about the prom. That would be a bad dating relationship. So the next time you see a credit card commercial, don't get lost in the shiny or the bright or the overpromise. Ask yourself, what are they really trying to tell me right now? Because I promise it's probably not the message you see first.
How many of you own a business or in sales of any kind? Raise your hand. How would you feel if Monday morning when you got to the front door, there were people lined up down the street on one knee saying, please sell me your stuff? And you say, well, I'll have to check your credit. Wouldn't that be an interesting way to be? See, if you and I had done as good a job selling our stuff as the banks have selling Americans on believing debt is necessary to exist and debt is necessary to prosper, now we go in to buy their product on bended knee. We go in and say, please sell me your debt. And then when they approve us to buy their product, it's like getting accepted to a country club that nobody can get in. You know, it's like, I've got a plutonium card. I was accepted. Isn't it? That's tremendous marketing. It's called a negative sale. When you can get someone wanting something, take it away from them so they chase you to get it. That is powerful because everybody wants to get into a crowded restaurant, don't they? Everybody wants to buy something that's no longer on the shelves, don't they? That scarcity kind of feeling, and that's the way debt has been marketed, and very effectively, to where now we think we're someone if we get approved. Isn't that an interesting twist and how they've been able to pull that off culture-wide? I think it's excellent. I think they're very, very smart, and I think they're very good at what they're doing. But you know, if we go into any other store and the salesman comes up and says, can I help you please? You say, oh no, I'm just looking. I mean, what if you went into a bank and they said, can I help you please? You say, no, I'm just looking. Instead you go, would you please give me a car loan? Please, because I need a car. We're begging them to buy from them. That's excellent, excellent marketing. And now we've reached the point that 25% of families now have a negative net worth. And I just pulled this up today. This is very interesting. Last year, the gross revenues for the credit card industry was over $150 billion as a whole. That is more than the gross national product of Egypt, Puerto Rico, and the Bahamas combined. This is a big deal. And these guys are very good at what they're doing. I'm not saying they're evil, and I'm not paranoid. I don't think there's a conspiracy. I just think they're a lot better at selling than we are at not buying. I think they're excellent at what they do. And I'm really kind of in awe of them in an evil, whacked out sort of way. rules over the poor, and the borrower is slave to the lender. Slave to the lender. You see, what happens to most of us is we get out of school and we get married, right? No, this is not marriage. But Sharon and I, we got out of school, we had a little bit of a student loan debt. We had too much on a MasterCard and a lot on an Amoco card, because when I was in college, I bought a couch on my Amoco card. I don't think you're supposed to do that, are you? Guy said it was okay, though. And we started off our lives broke. You remember when you started off broke. We ain't got money, honey, but we got love. Good thing, too, because we ain't got no money. And we were eating off a card table, driving a 1902 Pinto, just getting our life started. You remember. And that's about the time all those Pintos were blowing up. I don't know if any of you remember that or not. And my wife was driving the Pinto, so we were getting a little worried here. My buddies are going, bet you got good life insurance, don't you? So I got all embarrassed, went and bought my wife a brand new car I wanted. Yeah, some of the ladies understood that one, yeah. And then we're in this little apartment watching this television sideways that we bought at a garage sale. And so I went down to one of the electronics store and to get me a good television. 90 days, same as... Yeah, you know about that, because I'm a finance major. I'm going to get that free money. I'm going to use that free money. I'm going to beat them up. And I bought a stereo television, which meant I had to get a stereo. And then I had to get an entertainment center to put all this stuff in. Now, we're in a one-bedroom flea-bag apartment eating off a card table, but we have a stereo system shaking 8-block area. Priorities, baby, priorities. And that's how we started off our lives. And then our friends came over and said, oh, you've been married 20 minutes and you haven't bought a house yet? Oh, renters go to hell. Oh, you can't be a renter. Gotta buy a house, gotta buy a house, gotta buy a house, gotta buy a house, gotta buy a house. Now listen, I want you to get a house, but broke people shouldn't buy a house. That blessing will turn into a nightmare. And so we went and we got a house with nothing down, because that's what we had to put down, nothing. They called it creative financing. We thought it was creative. Here we got no money, we signed our name and got a house. This is just good. In America, what a country. And we bought a house in the same neighborhood that I grew up in. You see, Larry Burkett used to say, we spend the first 5 to 7 years of our marriage trying to attain the same standard of living as our parents. Only it takes them 35 years to get there. So we're in the same neighborhood as Mom and Dad, had a better car than Mom and Dad, and for sure had a better stereo system than Mom and Dad. That's how we started off our lives. We have people that look like this come into our office all the time. They're going, dude, can you get me out? See, the sad thing is 52% of the marriages in America end in divorce. Of those that divorce in the first 7 years, well, guess what they tell us? 90% of those say marriage problems caused the young marriage to crash. Money problems caused the young marriage to crash. You see, it's no fun like this to be married. You know why? Your leg gets tired. So we made a decision, Sharon and I, that the borrower really is slave to the lender, that's as true as the fact that is north. It's the truth. Whether we liked it, whether it was convenient, whether it hurt our feelings, it was still the truth. And we made a decision to get out of these things. And we worked like animals. We sold stuff. We drove old beat-up used cars. Our kids grew up in consignment sale. Yes, experienced clothing. But their college fund was funded Oshkosh Bagosh. And we made a decision we weren't living like everybody else. We figured out what normal was, and we didn't want any part of it. And it took us a while. It took us a lot longer than some of you that are working our program. But finally, we reached the point. Finally, we busted it, and we pushed, and we twisted, and we turned, and we sacrificed, and we didn't go on vacation, and we did all the stuff we talk about all the time. And finally, we paid off everything, even the house. You know what you can do if you don't have any payments? Anything you want. You know how hard it is to make money, save money, give money, and invest money when you don't already have everybody else's name on your money? before it comes in, it's easy to make money, save money, give money, and invest money when you don't have someone else's name on everything you have. When all the money comes in and all the money goes out and only the names are changed to protect the innocent, it takes all the fun out of the deal. But Dave, what about? And that's what I get when I go around the country talking about debt. People generally go, yeah, debt's a bad thing and we borrow too much in America. We get that, Dave, we understand. And it's a concept and a philosophy and a theology, we grasp that. But Dave, what about? And then there's their little thing that they think is different. And we all used to get these but Daves so much that we finally, on our talk radio show, the Dave Ramsey Show, we started doing a But Dave theme hour. Where you could call in and ask me about your But Dave. And we would go into it, and I started hearing, and what I started realizing is that people not only had believed the overall myth that debt was the way to win with money, but they had all of these very specific little lies built into the big lie that they had believed. We call them myths. If you spread a lie, tell it often enough and loud enough, eventually it becomes accepted as the truth. So what we're going to do in this lesson is we are going to debunk the myths.
There are several financial myths that young adults fall for. The first one is that you have to build credit. That drives me crazy because credit is not necessary to survive. You need to know that the credit industry wants you to believe this. They know that if they can make people think that they need to build their credit, then they're giving you a reason to go into debt. The truth is, there is no reason to go into debt. We're the most marketed to country in the world. Watch the commercials when you get home. All of these commercials make you feel like you need these things. You don't need those things. It would be nice to have, but only if you have the money, so you don't need it. So avoid debt like the plague. I want young adults to just slow down. You can get things later in life. Just save up and pay cash for it. The next thing is that they often think, I can do whatever I want when I'm in college, and I'll just pay for it later when I'm making money. Taking on a lot of debt because you won't tell yourself no will limit your options later in life. Because when you get out, or even if you're in school, you've got to make the money required to make those payments. So by not thinking you can do whatever you want and just pay for it later, what you're doing is having self-control. And later, that's going to give you options for down the road. The third thing is the feeling that you need a new car. You have to look cool on campus, so you need a new car. The problem with that is if you don't pay cash for it, that car is bringing what? A lot of debt with it. And don't get me wrong, I felt the same way coming out of college. I didn't have enough money, and so fortunately, I refused to go into debt. Instead, I saved up, and I was able to get a newer car later. Everyone wants everything right now, but debt keeps you from being able to pursue your dreams later in life. Don't fall for these myths. Avoid debt, save for emergencies and large purchases, and learn to say no, even when the people around you won't.
All right, and so now you have a video on, or a lesson on Schoology to work on. It's the hidden cost of credit, and so you're gonna work on that. You can just kind of read through it, and then on a lined piece of paper or something like that, number it and record your answers there.